Okay, well, this is Roger Roots. I'm here in New Orleans at the Libertarian National Convention 2018, and I have with me my very special guest, Miss Mary Ruwart, Dr. Mary Ruwart.
Yes.
Longtime libertarian activist and author. She's authored how many books?
This is my third book.
Third book, Hold It Up, Death by Regulation. And when did this come out?
This just came out in April, so just a couple months ago.
Okay. And the book, you were telling me earlier about a study that you've done. Would you just go ahead and discuss that?
Sure. Basically, I thought that the 1962 amendments to the Food and Drug Act, which basically are FDA regulations, had really harmed our health. And so I did a study to see if that was the case. And sure enough, probably we've all lost 5 to 10 years of our lives to these regulations.
Wow.
And the way we've done that is these regulations increase the time it takes for a new drug to get to market from about 4 years to something a little closer to 14 years. So a lot of people die waiting. In fact, I was working on AIDS drugs, anti-AIDS drugs, when these changes were happening because they've kind of open-ended, so they keep growing every year. And by the time the FDA gave us permission to test our drugs in people, all the AIDS patients in the country had had them already and were resistant. And that was because they hired black market chemists to make them. They knew they couldn't wait all that time. And then, of course, the impact of the increasing costs on innovation is tremendous. You know, probably about 15 million people died waiting for new drugs because we know how many lives these drugs save, but we've lost about 27 million lives due to loss of innovation, and that's really a very, very conservative estimate.
And the cost of the new pharmaceuticals coming on, what is it, over $1 billion to get a new drug approved?
Yes, it's $2.5 billion, but it increases every year, and it's exponential, which means it goes up like this. And so the cost is so high that every new drug that comes on the market costs more and more and more. And of course, Americans are very disturbed about this, as they should be.
Absolutely.
And it's not going to change unless we get rid of these regulations.
And also there's a lot of crony capitalism with these mega companies, Pfizer and Merck. They all sort of embed themselves and they hire lobbyists and
yes. I mean, you could think these regulations really put the small companies out of business. And because of the timeline increasing to about 14 years by the turn of the century, what happened was they changed things. They called it the Prescription Drug User Fee Act. What they did is they started charging the pharmaceutical companies a user fee, which started out at about $100,000 a year and it's now up to $2 million. And what this does is it funds the salaries of the FDA examiners who approve drugs. So what has happened is about half to 2/3 of the salaries of the FDA examiners who approve drugs are now paid for by the pharmaceutical industry. Clearly a conflict of interest.
Wow. Do you think we would have cured cancer and all these other diseases if it hadn't been for these government agencies?
Yes, the FDA has been extremely hard on physicians, for example, that find new treatments or believe they've found new treatments for cancer. They don't just go to them and try to encourage them to do studies, they prosecute them. And in fact, there's a doctor in Houston, I live in Texas, so he's close by, Dr. Stanislav Brzezinski, who found that cancer patients don't have something in the urine that healthy patients do. So he started giving that compound after he synthesized it or made it, in the lab, to cancer patients. And a lot of them have gotten well when their doctors told them to go home and prepare to die. And these been brought into court at least 4 times by either the FDA or the Texas Medical Association, which works in conjunction with the FDA.
Wow. Dr. Mary Ruwart, so glad to sit down and talk to you. Thanks so much.